LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, See Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.
Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Lydia. My name is Lydia Khalil, and thank you to everybody who has celebrated and continue to celebrate with us. It's been a whole year of conversations, and I couldn't have done it without the people who came to share their stories. Those of you who have been so diligent with watching and giving me feedback and, even asking and suggesting for topics. So I just want to say thank you, a really heartfelt thank you, gratitude for the support, for the love, and for watching. So into our second year, I'm sure you've realized that we've been having reruns just to celebrate episodes that we showed or had at the beginning of the program. I'm sure even those who watched it before found them even more interesting. I listened to 1 and 2, and there were so many things I didn't catch the first time or second time or third time around. And those that are listening to the podcast, thank you as well. You're not forgotten. I love you all. Thank you again. But moving on into our second year, we've got a lady this evening. We're going to talk about family therapy, which is something that we haven't, I think, engaged with at all in the year. What it feels like to parent. She works with children. She's fully certified and Ofsted trained. She's also an integrative counselor like myself. We're going to talk about therapy. We're going to talk about children. We're going to talk about families. How do we reconcile? Is family therapy real? Does it work? How does it work even? Who gets to go? Who makes that decision? Why do people make that decision? So join me as I welcome Ronke Adeyemi.
Good evening, Lydia. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's nice to meet another integrative therapist. So welcome. So before we sort of get to talk about the work, I always ask guests to talk a bit about themselves and their journey and where they are now.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ronke Adeyemi, as rightly said. I'm an integrative counselor and psychotherapist, members of British Association for Counsellors and Psychotherapy. And I'm also a registered childcare practitioner, Ofsted registered. Basically work with children with 14, both domestic and non-domestic, domestic premises. And I work privately, as you can see in my private, I'm a private therapist, and I work privately with clients, with couples, individual and young people.
Okay, so we'll explain. I'm sure most of the people have heard about the therapies part, but the childcare you provide, you mentioned domestic and off domestic. What does that mean? Because I don't know what that means.
Okay, domestic premises is when you have children coming into your home. Before lockdown, we used to have children coming into the house after school. We take them to school, we bring them back home. Then we have different activities with them, help them with their homework, then the parents will come. And the non-domestic is the one we practice outside. We have, I used to use leisure center or library. There's a place where we're given to work with children. So we pick children up from different schools into the premises, then support them with their homework, interact with them, engage with them, develop their play skills until the parent comes to pick them up.
Okay, and these are mainly for parents who work, where both parents work.
Yes.
So in a way, it's like a home from home. So because the ones who come into the person providing the child care, they're actually physically coming into their homes. They need to feel comfortable. They feel like, okay, they're home from school, because it's quite a long day if they're coming to the practitioner in the morning, and then that's where they go to after school, and they're there till whenever the parents comes to pick them up. So how do you get to do that? How do you get to make the children feel comfortable and safe? I think.
Yeah. As you know, in England, you can't provide any childcare for somebody else's children except you are registered. So we're regulated, health and safety is quite paramount, and children well-being and development is quite paramount. So I work with other group of people that support in this area. They're qualified, registered as well, the DBS checked, which means free from criminal offenses. So yeah, get their support to do the work, and we've got like daily routine, what we need to do when we pick the kids up. Basically, you give them lunch, good lunch. Then after that, assignments, homework. Then you sit with them. Then after the homework, because the children will be so eager to play, so which makes it that their homework has to be done.
Okay. So on average, how old are these children? What ages do you work with?
Between 3 years old and 14 years old.
Okay. So any child practitioner would have a mixture of ages, or they would have a particular age group that they work with?
Yeah, they do. Some do have babies from 0 or from 3 months, or whenever the parent is quite comfortable to leave them. They will have it till 3 years old or 5 years old. So it depends. And some on voluntary list is from 8 years to 14 years. Then both compulsory and voluntary, that is where I stand, is from 3 to 14.
Okay. What's the difference between voluntary?
The difference is voluntary means you can just register. With Ofsted, you don't need to, because the children is from 8 to 14, so no in-depth of regulatory requirements to be met. Because the children, they're not baby. You can't compare that with 3 to 8. They're still young. They're very young. Then babies, you must have a specific training. Yeah, all of us will have specific training. We do have CPD, just like any other profession.
Yeah. Okay. Because I guess the distinction between the 8 and 14-year-olds is that they can speak, they have an understanding of what is right and wrong. So if they're being treated badly, they can vocalize it.
Absolutely.
Whereas a child who is younger or much younger, or baby, really can't vocalize, and they are left. Okay, so hence the reason why there has to be quite strict regulations around who can and cannot look after a youngish child. So how do you get the parents to trust you with their bundles of joy, or their...
It's trust. I mean, you try. If you don't try, you won't know. So you try.
Okay. Do you have parents who, well, maybe I shouldn't say parents, but I'm sure moms who struggle with letting go or struggle with the fact that the child now feels okay with another person, like replacing their role.
Yeah. Then because the children in our care, because they're not babies, so obviously they will have been like school children. So yeah, a bit of anxiety. How would they feel? How would the children settle? Then plus their own mindset where they are. We get that always. There's nobody that wants to leave their children for the first time that will feel it, even if you have 10. So when you're living one with a stranger, you'll be scared a bit. So there'll be a bit of anxiety. But as time goes on, is the way the children feels, is the way they, when they see you always know. Maybe if you bring a kid to a childcare premises where they weren't treated very well, after a couple of days, you feel it. The child will have anxiety. The child will be scared to go in. So as a mother, you will know your children, then you take action. Then from the reports, the daily reports we give, because you have to give daily report to the parents, how the child is, what they've done, what you observe. Yeah, so all those things comes to end of the day feedback given to parents.
Okay, so they get a report as to how the child was faring, and I think the parents also have to notice if there's a difference in the child's behavior, if they're feeling more anxious, or I guess after a week or 2 or 3 weeks, the child should have relaxed into the carer's hands, for want of a better word. How does a parent, like, sometimes a parent might have pressure from work that they have to go in, and the child is feeling uncomfortable or is saying they don't want to go. What are sort of the key points that a parent should pick up and know that, okay, this is not just the child being clingy, that something might be wrong?
When a child is kept with, I won't use stranger, with childcare provider, part of our job is observation. So you observe the child. If you know this child can't, obviously the school will have picked it up. Bear in mind that the children in our care goes to school. You drop them off in the morning, maybe staying with you for less than an hour, then bring them back from school. So school will have given you their own reports. Then our report is why I use ours is because I have other people working with me. Our report, we add it over the school report, then we inform the parent, because obviously your child comes first. Money is important, your job is important, but in everything, child comes first. So you will need to find a way to speak to your manager or your boss to look after your child. Because it's part of health and safety requirements.
Yeah. What of in the cases where actually the person looking after the child, somebody like you, now realizes or feels or notices that the child is in a difficult place? So either they're being abused or they're being neglected, something is wrong. What happens then?
The reports will come from school. Again, we pick children from school. So we both talk, we both know that this is what we see, this is what I see. Then again, if it's a child from 3 can talk. So we hear so many things that happens from home in the child care premises. And the children do talk to themselves about their own. So that is where we come in, what is happening, what is going on. And if things doesn't go the way it meant to go, that is where social services come into it.
Okay, because that's like crossing the boundary, because now you're saying to the parent, we think something is wrong. Can you just quickly explain that process. If there is something wrong, school is worried, the person who provides care for the children or the child is worried, and then social services are asked to come on board.
It's called safeguarding. If there's any safeguarding issue, school will pick it up. We will be contacted. They too will write their own report, and they will contact social services. But if in a case where it slip off school, which is it's not, it doesn't happen. I have this, but that is where we come in contact. The staff will contact me, then I'll contact social services.
Okay. And then social services visits the parents, visits
Yes,
the home.
yes, they do their own thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Does social services come back to you, or they just pick it up and you come out of the loop?
No, they will collect the report from us.
Okay.
So they will have our own report as well as school. Then it's their business from there.
From then on, then they pick it up. Okay. All right. So which came first, the therapist, or the childcare? And how did you do the crossover? Okay, let me ask one question at a time. Which came first, the therapist or the childcare?
I would say it's a childcare.
Okay.
Both of them.
Is a child. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
so
it's
what
of them.
made you lean towards the therapy? What caused you to think, okay, that's a field I would like to explore?
Good question. I get it all the time. As you may know, I'm a Nigerian and find myself in this country through marriage. And I understand loads of issues that faces people of the same culture with me. And I'm also a Christian, and I see the burden that we just pick on, which is not from God. It's man-made burden. It's culture. Our culture places on us.
I'm going to push now. So give me just an example. It doesn't have to be about anybody. Just
okay.
Just like just a generic example, because I think we need part of the reasons about this program is just to practicalize some of the things that we spend, I don't want to say copious amounts of time praying about, when they're just like practical things that you just need a human being and it's done. Okay, so that's why I'm asking, like a practical, so that people can relate to those examples. Yeah.
Okay, let me start from children. We're having children. We have children. We have a child that his or her behavior just changed, and we just believe God will do something. Yes, God can do something. We can pray, but there's a step we need to go further. We need to check, where is this coming from? Is it from home, or we're living in a domestic abusive home, a family with conflict, and we're praying to God to change the children, and the mom is suffering or the dad is suffering, and the children can see all this turmoil going on in the house, and we're saying, no, it's God will do it. Then if I'm there, if I don't seek help, that means I'm taking care of my own. Then if I don't talk to other people, yes, I'm protecting my family. But the children in the family are suffering, and the parents themselves are suffering. They're dealing with pain, with shame, with guilt, with so many emotions that I can't really explain. But we put it on God, we put it on culture, we put it on family. My background doesn't support this, or stay in there. Instead, for us to seek support, to seek help, It's not all conflicts at home that will end up in divorce. It's communication breakdown. And that is one of the reasons after qualifying as an integrative counselor, I went to do person-centered couples therapies to be able to support people, especially people from my culture.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. I think that that's a reality. I think a lot of times people are living things that can be resolved,
Yes.
sort of get bundled into the prayer list.
Mm-hmm.
And we live a lot of times in denial. And a lot of times we don't actually want to engage with what
Yes.
is really in front of us. So we sort of spend a lot of time going about in circles and praying for a miracle that
Mm-hmm.
actually we didn't need to go that route. That's what you're saying, that we can just engage
We
with it,
don't.
sit down, have good conversation, find out what the real problem is, find a practical way of dealing with it, and praying alongside. Not, we're not saying not to pray, but at least let there be something that you're doing, engaging uh, with it. I think just as we were speaking, I think what came to mind is when Moses got to the Red Sea and he's looking up to God, and God is saying, no, just
Right.
stretch your hand and
Yes.
engage with the thing that is in front of you. Don't look at me. So I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times we do that, where we're not looking at what is in front of us and engaging with it and looking up. So what do you think? I know we talked a bit about culture, and a lot of it actually we defer it to God, and this is how it's done in the culture. So is it because we're now living in a different environment this is highlighted?
Even in Nigeria, it's worse. No, the home base is worse. It's not just because we're here. And I guess now people seeing the impact of this on the children. I did a research when I did my first degree in this country, which is on psychosocial studies, research on impact of separation or impact on living in a conflict home with
Mm-hmm.
adult Nigerians living in the UK. So my participants were all out of a broken marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and some sees it as some perceive it as a way to be strong in future. Some sees it as I'm just because they suffered, so I'm just going to remain where my husband puts me. As a result, they don't develop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as if the man wants them to be like that. It's a material they brought from the past. Then the one that feels, no, I'm going to put 70% and my husband will put 30%. That comes from the aspect of fear,
Mm-hmm.
because the person saw the mom very empowered and was
Mm-hmm.
able to leave a conflict home, whilst other women, because I mean, she came from a polygamous, but other women suffering. So when the man now needs help, her mother was able to provide the help. So for that reason, she wore trousers from home. So this thing affects people differently. So that is then our childhood, the way we were raised. Our children now, some of them refuses to marry. Some chooses to choose whatever sexuality they want as a result of what they've seen from home. So I think people are kind of speaking out. They want things to be better. They want their own life to be better than their parents. And some, yeah, you disappeared. Yeah. So some are doing things even better than us. They go for premarital relationship before they even go into marriage at all. And some they quickly introduce themselves into counseling before things begin to fall apart. And while some just feel, well, God will do something, but things are changing. Even in Nigeria, people are complaining. People are changing. Things are changing. Here, things are changing. Our boys want to live better than their parents. Our girls want to do things better, and some refuses to go into relationship at all.
I think I have to agree with you that I'm increasingly hearing that from, we'll call them the youth, younger generation, and saying that there's no value in marriage. My parents were married, there was nothing. Or actually, they were Christians, but the home wasn't an example. They would go to church and do one thing, they would come home and bicker and fight and all of that. So, yeah, I think what we're saying fundamentally is that if the home has issues that are not dealt with properly, this impacts the children that we're having in those homes. And that in turn will impact who they are. They will have trust issues. And when we sort of are encouraging them, which is the societal norm, to get married, have children, they're going to resist it because they've seen, how difficult or how challenging or how unhappy their parents were. Because in every home, if there's difficulty, both parents can't say they're happy. Yes. Even if one's the perpetrator, somewhere in that person there is unhappiness that they're causing them to do what they're doing.
Of course.
So how do we mend families? How is it possible to do that?
Yes, that is if they don't wait till when everything is difficult to be resolved. We can mend family if they introduce themselves into counseling. If they seek, if you're Christian or Muslims, or you have imam, you have pastors, there is certain expectation that they're there to support. They get help, speak out. Then there's if you are afraid of going to secular counselor, there are Christian counselors. I am one of the members of Association for Christian Counselors. So there are Christian counselors, registered practitioners that you can seek help from. Then it's good to speak to somebody. Yes, it can, because it's communication. So where communication breaks down, counseling can amend.
Okay. All right. I know there is
work on failed.
Yeah. I know there's, I don't know if you've experienced it, but I've experienced it where people will say they either want to go for church counseling, or they want to see the pastor, or they don't necessarily want to see a secular pastor therapist because they feel somehow the therapist is going to give them something, and the therapist has so much power over them, is going to influence them in a way that is going to be negative. But do you feel sometimes
to leave the marriage,
there's a difference between the I know the pastors or whichever faith you have are there for guidance, but do you feel that they're able to give the kind of counseling that you give?
My answer is yes. My answer is yes. My answer is no. Yes, if they're trained counselors. No, if they're not. Because in most cases, women, we've really experienced, we've been subjected. Women are meant not to talk. Then there are things that women could not expose in their marriage. You don't talk about sex in marriage. Then to your pastor, you won't free from my culture to say this is what is happening. Then where you feel taken for granted, you will hear something like, oh yeah, endurance. But you can't endure too much. I mean, I'm not generalizing everything. I'm not generalizing everybody. Everyone's experience is quite different. But however, if you see a secular counselor, we were trained to break home. We were trained to be present and facilitate positive communication between couples. Unfortunately, our perception as an African, I can only talk of Nigerian, is if you go to counselor, you've exposed me, you've exposed my family, then the man may not even follow you. Then lot of issues around culture. Lots of issues around culture.
Do you feel that there's this veil, which is probably what you're talking about, this idea of covering and secrecy and hiding. Yes, there's a lot of hiding, and it's so difficult for people to say. I don't know whether you've experienced this, but sometimes things are so bad in people's homes, and you're quite close to them, but they wouldn't share until one day there's this big, massive explosion, and you're thinking, but I've been here all along, nobody said anything. Where there could have been early intervention, that's what you're saying, where there could have been early intervention because of our stigma around asking for help, and this idea that we should cover everything and everything somehow will miraculously get sorted. The more we cover, the more we hide. And women tend to be given this responsibility of suffering that the woman has to endure, and the more she endures, the stronger she is, or at some point, some point the husband is going to I know, not that all husbands are bad, or in every difficult marriage it's the man's fault. Sometimes it's the woman, but this idea that we're just picking on the angle where the woman is given this responsibility to endure, and if she doesn't, she's either not a good wife, or not a good Christian, or not a good enough Christian. So let's go back a little and talk about children. What happens when people or what can be the sort of guide when people, sometimes they say teenagers are difficult. What if somebody's dealing with a difficult teenager? What advice can you give them?
The advice I will give is to send them for counseling. There are things that let's rule out hormonal changes, because they're now a teenager, they're just finding themselves. But I would suggest that parents should take them for counseling. I've experienced whereby a young person was 15 years old, 15, 14, was taken to counseling. And when I asked, what is the issue? When she had just said, that's it. I'm angry. Angry with who? Mom. It's mom. So the only way she could show her anger is to tell the parent that she's having this anxiety, her heart is palpitating, and which is true, because she doesn't know the reaction of the parents. But unfortunately, this doesn't happen too much with us. We keep the children at home until their mental health is messed up. But from the white community, they do that a lot. They will seek help. So if you take your child, if you push your child to see a counselor, there is possibility that the issue or whatever they might be going through will be resolved, will be supported. So I would say, if you can't get them to speak to you, they don't speak to you because they don't want to make you afraid, but seek help. Take them for counseling.
Okay. I think that's what okay, let me ask this question. What do you think is the biggest fear for a parent?
It's exposure. It's shame.
Do you feel they feel I'm not a good parent if I'm now asking for help?
They will be judged. That is part of it. They will be judged. Then the shame, and exposure. They fear of being of being, being judged.
Or sidelined. So Do you feel like they think the parent might think I'm not a good parent and somebody else is parenting my child better than me?
I would say yes. And again, no, because they haven't tried counseling. So they wouldn't know what maybe if they would feel that way. But I guess from my own research is mostly people is afraid letting their children to see somebody. Then the fear of being judged, they're not good enough. Then what is going on in the house? They don't know what the children will go there to say. Maybe the child will expose them or things that they don't want people to hear from outside. So if their children says it, so where I mean, is a fear basically.
Okay, so let's say that child isn't managed properly, because what you're saying is if the parent feels unable to cope, to manage, they're not able to relate with the child, not able to communicate effectively, don't know what's going on. Sometimes it could be as simple as the child is being bullied in school. Yeah, because I've heard of instances where the child is being bullied, goes home, says to mom and dad, I'm being bullied, and the response is, there's nothing like being bullied, just hold your own
Yeah.
and get on with it. Yeah. And the child is now in a state where they're scared to go to school, can't communicate at home, so they start to play truants or they start to act out in another way. I mean, how can a parent just, they might not be able to do the whole job, yeah, but if a parent has a child that is really difficult at the moment and they're listening or they're watching, what way can they engage with the child? What would be a way that they can reach out to the child, not necessarily be the one to speak or counsel, but just how can they just communicate, at least for now, until we find a solution?
Yeah. I think for parents, because I'm a mom myself, and I've got two young adults and almost teenage girl. I do is, and they're boys. Men are quite difficult, but they engage with me more than their father. I think that comes from the angle of ego. Again, because they see us as a weak or soft person, they don't want to bruise us. I guess we should find a way of getting into our child. Find time, not when they're busy doing their own thing, not when they're in a bad mood that you want to talk to them. We need to put ourselves we put ourselves aside when we're speaking to our children. We can't be on the phone, one hand holding phone, then speaking to your teenage or your young adult or teenage children. No, they want to see you are there with them. Then don't show that you are afraid. Try to understand what they're saying to you. That is if they open up. Then be honest with them. If you don't know what to do, then ask them, I don't know what to do, but I think we can get somebody that will help you. So it's just being putting ourselves, coming down to their level and find time, suitable time to communicate. But if it's something that we've been practicing when they were young, it won't be difficult as a teenager because they will have known who the parents are. They know us, they know our personality, they know that we can be very busy and make sure that you never come, or our phone is quite important, or even our job is more important than them. So they just stay in their own shell. So it's finding a way to communicate with them, befriend them.
I think what you're saying is that we have to make time for the children, and I think I'm not quite sure if it's a cultural thing or this idea that children are seen and not heard. And I hear even sometimes some children say that, actually, I eat well, I have good clothes, I'm housed, but I don't have a relationship with my parents. It's just like they give me money, I go to school, I come back, I get good grades, but there's no emotional connection.
Connection.
Mhm. So what you're saying is to take time to build on having at least an emotional connection with your children, where you can speak. And I think it comes with a bit of sacrifice, because sometimes we might think that going out to work, feeding them, buying them the nice clothes is really what is important. Sometimes it's just those conversations that are really important, that will hold the child. What if a case where a parent is listening and thinking, I haven't done all of this before, my child is 18 or 21. It's okay if you've got a child that you can still relate to, begin to. What if you've got one that is grown and you don't have this connect?
I will still say the same thing. It's just being honest with the child. I've seen a boy came into private practice, into therapy, and he said, when we were kind of checking his past, his background, and he said to me, my mom did come to me and apologize that if I had known what I know now, I would have handled you differently. And the father said the same thing, that they were just busy working. So if you feel left out, if you feel as if we abandoned you, we're really sorry. And do you know what? That thing brought the child to the therapy.
Because
and he was able to see things differently, not holding it against them. When he was bullied, when he was joining gang, when they were treating him bad at school, when he has to feel the sense of just part of being belonging. So he admitted that, my parents came from Africa, they came here to survive, and this is all what they know. It's at home. So it's being honest and being transparent with the child. Then continue building friendship. It's never a relationship with our children.
Okay, I think what you touched on is quite important, because it relates to the children having this sense of belonging, and we would call some good attachment.
Yes.
And actually, to make it known that neglect is not only when you don't give them food and water and shelter. Neglect can also be emotional. So when people are out working 12, 18 hours, and then all of a sudden they hear their child is in a gang, or hasn't been to school, it's sometimes we should take some responsibility as to how we contributed to that. But I think what happens is the parents just join the authorities in condemning the child without actually looking introspectively to see, okay, what went wrong here? Because they would be thinking, oh, I went to work, I'm working hard for you to have a roof over your head, I'm working hard for you to buy nice clothes and your stations, your PlayStations, and all of those things. And then the child doesn't have what we call a good attachment, a safe place where they can feel secure attachments, and where they can come and share their troubles, especially if it's a young boy growing into manhood. He has to feel there's somewhere safe where he can be vulnerable. And if that doesn't happen, then it can turn inwards. So I think that the thing is for parents to listen more, take some time out to sit with the children, to enjoy their children, because I'm not sure a lot of people enjoy their children. But I think, to speak for parents, I always say this to children, not even to children, to adults or young adults, when they're angry with their parents, that nobody actually gets a handbook. We sort of decide to have children, And then we make it
No.
up as we go along, we wing it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
either you're winging it based on something you read, or you're winging it based on something your parents did that you thought was good enough. And no, if, I'm sure even with your two children, they're both probably very different, and you have to
Oh, of
manage.
course,
So,
different.
because when somebody has like four, that means you're managing four different characters and four
Yeah.
different expectations in the home. So I think we should give a general apology to parents. We're just making it up as we go along.
Yeah. I think
But
for me, I'm kind
go.
of focusing on the parents that lives in the UK, not so much on the parent that lives in Africa, because we, the parents in the UK, especially we that have maybe young adults, children, there was an era where it's work, 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 work. And it's even better during mine. There was still an era way before then that some children would be kept with a nanny somewhere
Yeah.
outside London, outside where they don't live with their parents. And why? Because they have to work to survive. So that is where my concentration and focus is on. And again, it's not their fault. That was what everybody is doing. And that is all they could do to survive. What I'm saying is there's never a time that we can't apologize to our children. And for those people that are coming behind to learn from a mistake, I ask young people, what now that you know all this, what would you love to do differently? And they would list everything they miss. And still, it doesn't mean that they will not get it wrong, but it just means that they will do better than what their parent did. So this is not condemning anybody. I've got 3 kids, and my hands are up. Me too. I have my own faults. So, but I did what I know.
Okay. So, do you work in terms of training parents to be, or sort of trying to redress some of the wrongs that parents may have done in the past? Which are you working with?
No, I haven't worked with parents to be. However, that comes into the premarital counseling. We talk about children. We talk about who we do what who we do what. And I gained that from my experience of working with adult couple. Because what happens is, again, still focus on people in this part of the world where there's no cousin, there's no help, it's just you. Wife is a cleaner, is a cook, is everything. So what I hear from them mostly is domestic work, the house chore is killing the wife. She still have to work. But again, what about cleaning? What about shopping? So with that, I bring it into my premarital counseling for them to see where they could be if this is not addressed now. So I think that is the only place where it manifests. So
Okay.
no, I've never worked with someone that says, I want to be a parent. How can I?
That's a tall order. Um, okay, so with the couples you work with, so you just explained a bit about working with couples who are hoping to get married, so working
Yes.
with the basics, and of course the expectations that may be different, but I would imagine a child or children who've been in the UK their whole life would understand roles have to merge, but couples who come from a different background, and I don't think it's necessarily only from Africa or Nigeria. I think it's something that is quite cultural in most places, except maybe the UK and America, where chores can be split. So what you also work with couples who have challenges. So do you want to talk a bit about couple counseling and how it works and the benefits of it?
Yeah.
I know we talked a bit about it, but just to zero it down a little bit more.
Okay. As I've introduced myself, that I'm a person-centered couples therapist. And what I do mostly is you allow the couple to talk, facilitate their communication in a way that they will hear each other. Sometimes there are underlying factors that makes couple not to hear each other. Perhaps some could be neurotypical. For example, you'll be saying, if I said to you, I'm pulling my head whenever I talk to you. And you'll be wondering, but I never see you pull your hair for once. So why saying you pulling your hair? That is communication. So I help to facilitate positive and simple communication whereby they'll be able to hear each other. Then no suggestion, no anything. This is what this person is saying. What do you say? Then so sometimes it's personality, is being able to convey to each other your personality differences. This is what I can do, this is my limit, then how can you help? Then you will know, okay, my husband or my wife can't physically do this because that is where the limit ends. Then you'll find a way to support the wife or find a way to support the husband, and the family will be happy and children will be happy. But however, if we leave it till very late, that is where people say, oh, my counselor, my marriage break down completely during counseling. It's because you haven't heard what what your wife or your husband haven't said before. And the pain, the layers of pain is so much to the point that the only way to save the marriage, either save or or separated completely, is having a bit of gap. Then reflect on whatever that brought you to counseling. Then look into yourself and see how you can make things work. Not all separated couple end up in divorce. Some will separate for 6 months and come back, and their life will be sweet till eternity. So those are the kind of things we do, is enable couples to communicate with each other in a way that they will understand each other better.
Okay. I mean, when you work or when anybody works with couples, most of the time it's that mediating to make sure the other person actually hears what the other person is saying, and it doesn't get drowned or lost in the arguments and the screaming or crying or whatever would have ensued, or one person walking away without hearing. Yeah. But as you said, most of the time people come to counseling right at the end when there's nothing left to do, or they're sort of going to the divorce courts, and then somebody says, oh, why don't you try counseling? But by then people have pitched their tents what they really want to do. So do you, when I talk about counseling to my clients, I say, look, you can need it now, you can be over this bump, not come back for 3 years, come back again, have a little bump, and then go away. I always say it's like going to the GP and you need a course of antibiotics or something. So it's not something that you may not need again, but it might be something that you would need. So I know it's not a good time, but when do you think couples can introduce this aspect of counseling? Because I think when they hear people are going to counseling, they either think they're unwell or it's unretrievable,
or there's problems.
Or something is so big that it can't be fixed anymore. So because I think particularly for people of ethnic minorities, maybe in different locations, maybe if they were in their host countries or home countries, the family would have been that intervention. The family would have maybe had a meeting, there would have been some kind of compromise. There might have been a wise auntie or uncle that could have sort of done that bit. But now we're living in a different environment where that kind of support isn't there. So at what point do you think couples can introduce counseling into their marriages, whether it's been done by their pastor, whether it's been done by professionals like yourself, for them to know that actually if things get sticky, this is a place to go?
It's anytime. I just talked about premarital. Yeah, anytime. It's anytime you think, even when things are going on well, you may want to find out what can we do? What is it that we haven't touched? What can we do better? So if we introduce ourselves into counseling anytime, early, then we'll be able to see ourselves when we're drifting from, where we're supposed to be, or when we start feeling this feeling of not happy in our relationship again. So it's anytime. There's no set time.
Okay. So actually, I agree with you that even when things feel okay, there could be areas that might even be a good time to talk about something that is difficult. Yeah, something that is challenging, that if it was brought up in a different time, it might cause more friction. But if it's discussed when things are, stable, might be something, let's say, like money. So money is okay, but how we manage it or how one person manages isn't great. We're not communicating about that. That might be a good time to speak about it, speak your truth, as I say, and then get somebody else to manage it. And then there's an agreement, and people try to work with that agreement so that the relationship is improved. Okay, we've nearly come to time. So I always ask everybody, what would you like to leave us with today?
What I'm leaving everyone with is look after your mental health. No one will do it for you. If we are in a happy state of mind, our children will thrive. If we are in a chaotic environment and we have our own internal conflict, that's what we will project out. And we don't want to raise any child to have unstable emotional personality disorder. We want to see the fruits of our labor being flourished, and we want to see ourselves happy. Look after your health and seek help if you need to talk. Spend your money on yourself. Self-care is quite important. Nobody will do it for you. And prioritize what is important, which is us.
Okay, where can people find you?
Yes, my number can be displayed if you have it. My phone number is, sorry, I don't know it by heart.
Okay,
my work number.
Or your website.
Yeah, my website is www.futurematters1word counseling.com. futurematterscounseling.com. And my details are there. My name is Ronke. If you Google me, maybe on social media, Ronke Adeyemi, I'm there. Then my number, I think now I got it, is 07487 669158. 07487 669158. And my website is www.futurematterscounseling.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronke. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you, Lydia. Nice meeting you.
Same here. As you heard, if you look after yourself as a parent, it impacts the way that you raise your children. It impacts who they become. And if she didn't leave anything with us, it's about engaging with our children, learning to say sorry when we haven't been the best parent that we could have been. Thank you for watching. My name is Lydia Khalil, and I will see you next week.
LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, See Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.